When I was 72 years old, a man I had known for almost 3 years got down on one knee in front of me and asked me to marry him. His name was Walter. We were standing near the lake, behind the small restaurant where we had just finished dinner. It was early October. The air was cool and the leaves had started falling into the water. Walter held a small ring box in his hand. He looked nervous. I remember thinking how strange it was to see a 74-year-old man nervous. Then he opened the box. "Margaret," he said, "I don't want to spend whatever years I have left without you. Will you marry me?" I looked at the ring, then I looked at him, and I said no, not maybe, not give me time, just no. Walter slowly stood up. He did not get angry. That almost made it worse. He closed the box and looked at me for a long moment. Then he asked, "Is there someone else?" I shook my head. "Then why?" I wish I could tell you that I gave him a clear answer. I didn't. I simply said, "I can't do it." That night I went home alone. Walter didn't call me. And for the first time in many years, I sat in my kitchen and wondered if I had just destroyed the best thing that had happened to me since my husband died. I am 75 now, and looking back, I understand why people thought I was crazy. My daughter certainly did. When I finally told her what happened, she put her coffee down and stared at me. "You said no?" "Yes." "Mom, you love him." "I know." "Then why did you say no?" I looked out her kitchen window. Her question sounded so simple. But sometimes the hardest things in life have the simplest questions attached to them. Why did I say no? That answer began many years before Walter ever entered my life. And if you have ever reached an age where you thought, "I don't have enough years left to make another mistake," then maybe you will understand me. My first husband, Robert, died when I was 68. We had been married for 44 years. People often assume that because someone dies, the marriage must have been beautiful. That is not always true. Robert and I had good years. We had difficult years too. Like most people, I suppose. He worked for the county roads department. I ran a small flower shop on Main Street for almost 30 years. Robert loved routines. Same breakfast, same chair, same television programs, same complaints about the weather. If it rained, he complained. If it was too hot, he complained. If it snowed, he complained about the cold. And somehow I still miss hearing him complain. Life is strange that way, but during the last 10 years of our marriage, Robert changed, or maybe I changed first. I'm still not sure. He became quieter, not mean, not cruel, just far away. He could sit 3 feet from me and feel like he was somewhere I could not reach. I tried everything at first. I planned small trips. I cooked his favorite meals. I bought tickets to baseball games even though I did not care much about baseball. I thought if I kept bringing something new into our lives, maybe he would come back to me. But you cannot force someone to come back emotionally. That was something I learned too late. One winter evening, I remember standing in our bedroom holding 2 suitcases. I had packed them for a trip to Asheville. It was going to be our 40th anniversary. I had booked a small bed and breakfast. Nothing expensive, just 2 nights away. Robert came home from work, saw the suitcases, and frowned. "What is all this?" "Our anniversary trip." He stood there silently. Then he said, "Maggie, I can't go." I laughed a little because I thought he was joking. He wasn't. "Why not?" "Too much work." "It's 2 days." I said I can't. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed after he walked away. The suitcases stayed packed for 3 days. I don't know why. Maybe part of me thought he would change his mind. He never did. I finally unpacked them by myself. There are moments in a marriage that seem small at the time. But years later, you realize something inside you changed that day. That anniversary was one of those moments for me. After that, I stopped asking for things. Not all at once, slowly. I stopped suggesting trips. I stopped telling him when I felt lonely. I stopped expecting him to notice when I had a bad day. And when you stop expecting, you also stop being disappointed. At least, that is what I told myself. Robert got sick when he was 69. It was sudden. One day he was fixing the kitchen faucet, and the next week we were sitting in a doctor's office hearing words neither of us had expected. The last year of his life changed everything. I became his caregiver. I took him to appointments. I gave him his medicine. I learned which foods he could eat. I slept lightly because I was always listening for him, and something strange happened during that year. Robert became soft again. He held my hand. He thanked me. He apologized for things I had forgotten. One night, when he could barely stay awake, he looked at me and said, "You spent too much of your life waiting for me." I froze. I asked him what he meant, but he had already closed his eyes. He never explained it. Robert died 4 months later, and after the funeral, those words stayed with me. "You spent too much of your life waiting for me." For a while I was angry at him. I thought, why tell me that now? Why wait until the end? But grief is complicated. You can miss someone and still remember the ways they hurt you. You can forgive someone and still carry what happened. After Robert died, everyone kept telling me the same thing. "You're still young." I hated hearing that. At 68, I did not feel young. I felt tired. My daughter, Allison, wanted me to move closer to her. My friends wanted me to join clubs and take trips. One woman from church kept trying to introduce me to single men. I wanted none of it. I wanted my little house, my garden, my quiet mornings, and most of all, I wanted no one to need anything from me. That may sound selfish, but after spending years trying to keep everyone else comfortable, being alone felt like freedom. Then Walter came into my life. I met him in the most ordinary place possible, the grocery store. I was standing in front of a shelf, trying to reach a jar of peach preserves. The top shelf was just a little too high. I could have asked for help. I didn't. I was stretching my arm and probably looking ridiculous when a man beside me said, "If you fall trying to get that, I want you to know I'm not trained in emergency medicine." I looked at him. He was smiling. I laughed. And just like that, I met Walter Bennett. He had lost his wife 6 years earlier. He was a retired train engineer. He had 2 sons who called him mostly when they needed help fixing something. And he had a way of talking to strangers as if he had known them for years. I liked him immediately. That scared me. So I avoided him. Of course, in a small town, avoiding someone is not always easy. 2 weeks later, I saw him at the pharmacy, then at the farmer's market, then at a community dinner. By the 4th time, Walter looked at me and said, "Margaret, either this town is too small or you're following me." I said, "I was thinking the same thing." That was how it began. Not with romance, not with fireworks, with conversation. Walter was different from Robert. That does not mean he was better. He was simply different. Walter asked questions, real questions. "How was your day? What are you thinking about? Why did that make you sad?" At first, I didn't know how to answer him. Imagine that. A woman in her 70s, uncomfortable because a man actually wanted to know how she felt. Sometimes he would call just to tell me something funny that happened. Sometimes we went for breakfast. Sometimes we spent an entire afternoon doing nothing important. And those were the moments I liked best. I started to feel something I had not felt in a long time. Seen, not needed, not managed, not depended on, seen. But I had made a promise to myself after Robert died. I never told anyone about it, not Allison, not my friends, and certainly not Walter. The promise was simple. I would never again build my entire life around another person. At the time, I thought that promise would protect me. I did not understand that promises made in pain can become prisons too. So when Walter proposed to me at 72, I wasn't only looking at a ring. I was looking at every year I had spent waiting, every anniversary I spent pretending not to care, every time I made myself smaller to keep peace. Every dream I quietly gave up because someone else did not want the same thing. Walter was standing in front of me, but the past was standing there too. And that was why I said no. What I did not know was that Walter had one question left for me, and when he asked it, I realized my secret was not the only secret sitting between us. The next morning, before I had even made my coffee, there was a knock on my front door. I opened it. Walter was standing there, but he was not alone. And the person beside him was someone I had not seen in 27 years. The person standing beside Walter was a woman named June. For a moment, I honestly thought my mind was playing a cruel trick on me. I had not seen June Harper in 27 years, not since the day she walked out of my life without an explanation. She looked older, of course. So did I. Her hair, once dark brown, was now completely silver. Her face had more lines. She held her purse with both hands, the same nervous habit she had when we were young. But it was June, and the moment I saw her, my stomach dropped. Walter looked at me. "I know this is strange," he said. Strange was not the word I would have chosen. I stood in my doorway without moving. June gave me a small smile. "Hello, Maggie." I had not heard anyone call me Maggie in years. I looked at Walter, then at her. "What is this?" Walter took a slow breath. "Can we come inside?" Everything in me wanted to say no. I had already said no to Walter once. Maybe saying no was becoming too easy. But I stepped aside. They came in. I made coffee because I did not know what else to do. Sometimes when life gives you something you are not ready for, you still put the kettle on. That is what I did. June sat at my kitchen table. Walter stood by the window. Nobody spoke. The clock above my stove sounded louder than usual. Tick, tick, tick. Finally, I looked at June. "You disappeared." She lowered her eyes. "I know. For 27 years. I know. That is all you have to say?" She looked up at me then, and I saw tears in her eyes. "I didn't know if you would ever want to see me again." "You're right, I didn't." Walter moved slightly. I turned toward him. "And what does this have to do with you?" That was when he said something I never expected. My late wife, Susan, knew June. I stared at him. For a second, nothing made sense. Then June whispered, "Susan was my younger sister." I sat down slowly. You know those moments when your mind starts moving backward? That happened to me. Suddenly, I was no longer 72. I was 45. June and I were standing in my old flower shop. The place smelled like roses, wet leaves, and that sharp green smell from freshly cut stems. Back then, June was more than my friend. She was the person who knew everything about me, or at least I thought she did. We had grown up in the same neighborhood. Our mothers knew each other. We had shared school lunches, bad haircuts, teenage secrets, and later, the worries that come with marriage and children. June knew about Robert. She knew when I was happy, and she knew when I was pretending. There was one year when Robert and I were going through a difficult time, not because of another woman, not because of money, just distance, the kind that slowly grows when two people stop saying what they really feel. One afternoon, I told June something I had never told anyone else. I told her I was thinking about leaving Robert, not because I did not love him, but because I was beginning to lose myself. I remember sitting in the back room of the flower shop. My hands were covered with dirt from repotting plants. I was crying. June sat across from me and said, "Then maybe you should leave before you forget who you are." Those words stayed with me for months, maybe years. Then one day, June disappeared. No goodbye, no argument, no letter, nothing. I called her. Her number had changed. I went to her house. She had moved. I asked her mother, but she only said June needed a fresh start. I was hurt. Then I was angry. Eventually, I told myself I was over it. But some wounds do not disappear. They simply become part of you. And now, she was sitting at my kitchen table because somehow, after all these years, she was connected to Walter. I looked at her. "Why are you here?" June glanced at Walter. Then she reached into her purse. She took out an old envelope. My name was written on the front. Margaret. I knew that handwriting. My heart started beating faster. It was Robert's. I looked at Walter. "What is this?" He said quietly, "I think you should read it." I did not want to touch it. That may sound foolish. Robert had been dead for 4 years, but grief does not follow rules. I picked up the envelope. The paper was old and slightly yellow. My hands were shaking. I opened it. Inside was a letter, not a long one. Robert's writing was messy, but I could read every word. He wrote that he was sorry. Sorry for the things he had never said. Sorry for making me feel like I had to earn his attention. Then he wrote one sentence that made me stop breathing for a moment. He wrote, "June did not leave because she stopped caring about you." I looked at June. She was crying now. I could barely speak. "What does this mean?" June covered her mouth with one hand. Walter sat down beside her. And then the truth began to come out. 27 years earlier, June had found out something about Robert. Something he had kept hidden from me. It was not another woman. In some ways, I almost wish it had been, because at least I would have known what to call it. June told me that Robert had been quietly drowning in debt, a terrible amount of debt. I knew we had bills. I knew money was sometimes tight. But I did not know that Robert had borrowed against the house. I did not know he had taken money from a retirement account. I did not know he had been receiving threatening letters from people he owed. June found out because Robert had come to her. I stared at her. "Why would he come to you?" She looked ashamed. "Because I worked at the credit union." Then she told me the part that hurt the most. Robert had begged her not to tell me. He said he was going to fix everything. He said if I knew, I would leave him. I laughed when she said that, not because it was funny, because sometimes pain comes out in strange ways. "So he decided for me?" June nodded. "Yes." I looked at Walter, then back at June. "And you agreed?" She closed her eyes. "Yes." I could not believe what I was hearing. My best friend knew, my husband knew, and I knew nothing. For years I had thought Robert had simply become distant because he no longer cared. But the truth was much more complicated. He was scared, ashamed, and instead of coming to me, he shut me out. I stood up from my chair. I walked to the sink. Outside, a neighbor was walking her dog. A perfectly normal morning. That is another strange thing about life. Your whole understanding of the past can fall apart while someone outside is simply taking out the trash. I turned around. "But why did June leave?" Walter answered this time. "Because Robert asked her to." I looked at him. "What?" June wiped her face. "Robert told me that if I stayed close to you, I would eventually tell you everything." And I was weak. Those words were so quiet that I almost missed them. June looked directly at me. "I told myself I was protecting you, but I wasn't. I was protecting myself from the mess." That hurt. At least it was honest. For a long time, nobody spoke. Then I asked the question that had been sitting inside me. Why bring this to me now? Walter looked down at the ring box in his hand. I had not even noticed he was still carrying it. Then he said, "Because after you said no last night, I knew there was something you were not telling me." I folded my arms. "That does not give you the right to bring people from my past to my door." "You're right." His answer surprised me. "I had no right to push it this way," he said. But when I told my son what happened, he reminded me that Susan used to talk about a woman named Margaret, her sister's old friend, June. June looked at me, and when Walter called me, I knew I couldn't keep hiding anymore. I felt anger rising again. Not at Walter, not only at June. at time, at all those years. I thought about my marriage. I thought about the nights Robert came home late and barely spoke. I thought about the anniversary trip that never happened, the distance, the silence, the words I had never received. And suddenly, a terrible thought entered my mind. What if I had misunderstood my entire marriage? But then another thought came. Did it matter? Robert had been afraid. Maybe he had loved me. Maybe he had carried shame he did not know how to share. But he had still shut me out. And I had still spent years feeling alone. Both things could be true. That was the part I had never understood when I was younger. Life is not always about deciding who was completely right and who was completely wrong. Sometimes people love you and hurt you at the same time. Sometimes they mean well and still leave scars. Maybe you have lived through something like that. Maybe there is someone in your life whose actions never made sense. And maybe, years later, you discovered there was a reason, but a reason is not always the same thing as an excuse. That morning, after June and Walter left, I sat alone for nearly 3 hours. I did not call anyone. I did not turn on the television. I just sat there. On the table was Robert's letter. Beside it was the ring Walter had left behind. He had not asked me again. He simply placed the box on the table before he walked out. I looked at those two things. A letter from the man I had loved and lost, and a ring from a man who wanted to love me now. One belonged to my past. One belonged to a future I was afraid to enter. But then I noticed something else inside Robert's envelope. A second piece of paper, much smaller. There were only a few words written on it. I picked it up, and the moment I read the first line, I understood that June had still not told me everything. Because Robert had written, "Margaret, there is one more thing I need you to know about the night you almost left me." And underneath that sentence was an address I had never seen before. The next day, I decided to go there alone. But when I reached that house, I discovered something that made me question whether saying no to Walter had been the biggest mistake of my life, or the first honest decision I had ever made. The address was less than 40 minutes from my house. I almost did not go. 3 times I picked up my car keys. 3 times I put them back down. At 72, I had learned something about myself. I was very good at wanting answers. I was also very good at being afraid of them. The address was written in Robert's handwriting. That alone made it difficult. I kept looking at the small piece of paper as if it might change. It didn't. So the next morning, I made coffee, fed my cat, put on my gray coat, and drove there alone. The house was in an older part of town. Small. White. A little worn around the edges. There was a blue porch swing and a flower pot beside the front steps. Nothing about it looked important. I checked the address again. This was the place. I sat in my car for almost 10 minutes. Then I got out. Before I could knock, the front door opened. An older man stood there. He was probably close to 80. Thin, silver hair, dark green sweater. He looked at me for a few seconds. Then his eyes moved to the paper in my hand. "You must be Margaret." My entire body went cold. I had never seen him before. "Yes." He stepped aside. "I've been wondering when you would come." That sentence did not make me feel better. I followed him inside. The house smelled faintly of coffee and old books. He led me to a small sitting room. There were framed photographs everywhere, a woman I did not know, 2 children, a younger version of the man, and then I saw one photograph that made me stop. Robert. He was standing beside the man in front of me. They looked younger, maybe in their 40s. Both were laughing. I turned toward him. "You knew my husband?" The man nodded. "My name is Samuel." He sat down slowly. Robert was my friend. I stayed standing. I didn't trust my legs enough to sit. Samuel looked at me. "I know you've been through enough surprises already, so I'll try to make this simple." I almost laughed. Nothing had been simple since Walter proposed. Samuel reached toward a small wooden box on the table. He opened it. Inside were several envelopes. My name was written on all of them. My heart started pounding. How many letters did he write? More than he ever mailed. That was Samuel's answer. I stared at the box. There were letters from different years. I could tell by the dates. One from when I was 47, one from 52, one from 59, one from 63, and then several from the last year of Robert's life. I finally sat down. My knees had started shaking. Samuel handed me the oldest envelope. I opened it carefully. The first letter was short. Robert wrote about a dinner we had attended. Apparently, I had spent the evening talking to another couple while he barely said a word. I remembered that night. I had gone home angry because Robert seemed bored. In the letter, he wrote that he had wanted to talk to me. But every time he tried, he felt like the words got stuck. I read it twice. Then I put it down. Samuel watched me quietly. Robert had a problem, he said. I looked up. What kind? He thought silence protected him. I felt something tighten inside me. Samuel continued. He believed that if he kept his worries to himself, he was being strong. He did it with money, with work, with fear, with almost everything. I looked down at the letters. And what did that do to me? Samuel nodded slowly. I think you know the answer. Yes, I did. It made me lonely. Samuel did not defend Robert. I respected him for that. Instead, he said something I had needed to hear. Understanding why someone hurt you does not mean you have to pretend they didn't hurt you. I looked at him. Maybe you have had this happen too. Maybe years after something painful, you finally learned why. And for a moment, you feel confused. Should you feel angry? Should you feel sorry for them? Should you forgive them? Sometimes the answer is all of those things. I opened another letter. This one was written after our 40th anniversary, the anniversary when Robert refused to go to Asheville. I remembered it immediately, the packed suitcases, the silence, the feeling that I had been foolish for wanting something so simple. My hands shook as I read. Robert wrote that he had been planning to tell me about the debt. He had intended to tell me during that trip. Then he became afraid. He canceled the trip because he could not bring himself to sit across from me for 2 days, knowing the truth would eventually come out. So instead, he avoided the whole thing. He hurt me to avoid being honest. I closed my eyes. There it was, the pattern. Not only in Robert, in me too. Robert was afraid of difficult conversations, so he became silent. I was afraid of losing him, so I accepted the silence. He hid. I waited. And together, without even realizing it, we built a marriage where neither of us said what mattered most. That realization hurt more than discovering the debt. Because I could not blame everything on him. I had a voice. I just stopped using it. Samuel handed me a glass of water. I took a sip. Then I noticed something on the side table, a framed photograph. Robert and Samuel again. But this time they were standing with another person, Walter. I stared at the photograph. My stomach dropped. I picked it up. That's Walter. Samuel nodded. Yes. I looked at him. How do you know Walter? For the first time since I arrived, Samuel looked uncomfortable. I knew then that there was more. There was a time, he said slowly, when Walter needed Robert's help. I put the photograph down. With what? Samuel looked toward the window. His marriage. I felt something inside me go completely still. Walter had told me about his late wife, Susan. He had said she had been sick before she died. He had told me grief had changed him, but he had never mentioned Robert. I stood up. Did Walter know Robert? Yes. For how long? Samuel sighed. Longer than you think. I did not wait to hear more. I picked up my coat. Samuel called my name. Margaret, wait. But I was already at the door. Outside, the air felt cold against my face. I got into my car, and for several minutes, I just held the steering wheel. Walter, Robert, Samuel, June. How could all these people be connected? And why had Walter never told me? I drove straight to Walter's house. I did not call first. I didn't want him to prepare an answer. His car was in the driveway. I knocked once, then twice. He opened the door. The moment he saw my face, he knew. Samuel told you. It was not a question. I walked inside. You knew my husband? Walter closed the door behind me. Yes. How? He looked tired. Not guilty exactly, but tired. Robert was my friend. I stared at him. No, don't do that. Do what? Don't stand there and give me half an answer. Walter looked down. And suddenly I heard my own voice from years ago. All those times I had accepted half an answer from Robert. All those times I had said, fine, never mind. But I wasn't that woman anymore. Not that morning. Tell me everything. Walter sat down. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he looked at me. Robert knew Susan before I did. I frowned. What? Susan worked with Robert's sister years ago. That's how we all became friends. I tried to remember. Robert had mentioned friends from his younger days, but I had never met most of them. Walter continued. When you and Robert were having problems, Robert talked to me. My heart started racing. What did he tell you? Walter looked directly at me. He told me he was afraid you would leave him. I laughed bitterly. So he talked to you about it? Yes. But not to me. I told him to talk to you. Did you? Yes. I believed him. That was the painful part. Walter's voice became quieter. Robert said you deserved better than what he knew how to give. Those words stayed in the room between us. I thought about the years, the quiet dinners, the empty anniversary trip, the packed suitcases, all the things Robert had wanted to say but never said. Then I looked at Walter. So what does this have to do with you proposing to me? Walter leaned forward. Everything. I folded my arms. Explain. He took a deep breath. Because when I first started caring about you, I remembered what Robert told me. My face tightened. What exactly did he tell you? Walter stood and walked to a cabinet near the fireplace. He opened a drawer and took out something wrapped in an old cloth. He placed it on the table between us. I looked down. It was a small cassette tape. I stared at it. Walter said, Robert gave me this 21 years ago. My hands went cold. What is on it? Walter did not answer immediately. That frightened me. Finally, he said, Your husband talking about you. I stepped back. Why didn't you tell me? Because Robert asked me not to. I looked at the tape, then at Walter. And suddenly, I was angry. Not only because he had kept a secret, but because I had spent nearly 3 years falling in love with another man who had known far more about my past than I ever imagined. You let me tell you things, I said. Walter's face changed. You let me sit there and talk about Robert. I know. You listened to me say I was afraid of marriage. I know. And all this time you knew why. Walter closed his eyes for a moment. Yes. I walked toward the door. Margaret. I stopped. His voice sounded different, not desperate, just honest. I loved you before I knew what to do with the truth. I turned around. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then I said something I had never planned to say. You don't get to love me with one hand and hide things with the other. Walter's eyes filled with tears. I opened the door, but before I stepped outside, I looked back. I'm taking the tape. He nodded. Take it. I drove home with that cassette sitting on the passenger seat. I did not play it. Not that day. I could not. Instead, I put it on my kitchen table. Then I sat beside it until sunset. At 72, I thought I was saying no to Walter because I was afraid of marriage. But now I was beginning to understand something else. Maybe I was not afraid of marriage at all. Maybe I was afraid of becoming silent again. The next morning, I found an old cassette player in a storage box. I cleaned the dust from it. I placed Robert's tape inside. Then I pressed play. For several seconds, there was nothing but static. Then I heard Robert's voice, older, tired, and very close. "Margaret," he said. I closed my eyes. "I hope you never hear this." Then there was a long pause, and Robert said something that made me stop the tape immediately. Because he was not talking about the past. He was talking about a choice I had not made yet, a choice that somehow involved Walter. And suddenly, I understood why Walter had looked so afraid when I took that tape. I sat in my dark kitchen, staring at the cassette player. For the first time, I was no longer wondering whether I had made a mistake by saying no. I was wondering what Robert had known all those years ago, and whether the man I was beginning to trust again had been waiting for this moment far longer than I ever imagined.